Hi friends! If you're new here, welcome. In this video, I'm going to be making the middle layer of Han Chinese clothing from approximately 2,000 years ago, give or take about 200 years. I've heard this referred to as zhengyi, which, as far as I know, literally just means middle layer. It's not like a specific name for specific pieces of clothing. It just means the clothing that you wear between the underwear layer and the next layer. There really isn't a whole lot of information on this clothing because it is from so long ago, and of course all of the clothing was made from natural fibers at that point. Those things don't last 2,000 years, at least not without some kind of preservation. So most of what there is to go off of is like paintings and sculptures, which don't really show this middle layer. As far as I know, these would have been worn as sort of loungewear. Generally they would be under the outer layer of clothing, but in like a casual kind of home setting, they may have just been the outer layer. But yeah, what I'm making is sort of a vague interpretation of this clothing. Starting off with the skirt, it's a flared wrap skirt that is cut as trapezoids from a large rectangle. I cut out 8 of these and then lined them up with all of the small sides together, which will be at the waist, making sure that each of the long seams has one bias cut edge against one straight grain edge to kind of prevent stretching. The sewing machine I'm using is a 1940s Singer machine that I found recently, and as it turns out, the previous owner's name was also Aura. I just thought that was kind of fun. These are French seamed together by sewing with a large seam allowance, then trimming down the seam allowance and sewing again from the other side to encase all of the raw edges. The waistband is just a long rectangle that is about 1 1/3 times my waist measurement. It's just cut as a strip of linen, salvage-wise, with the short ends pressed under. Like I said, this is a wrap skirt, so to close it I've created 4 ties, 2 smaller ones for the inside and 2 larger ones for the outside. The waistband gets sewn on right sides together with the skirt and then hand finished on the inside. The ties get sewn onto the waistband by hand. Then I evened out the skirt hem and hemmed it with a rolled hem foot. This rolled hem foot was not quite ideal for the situation with all of the thick seam allowances and bias cut edges, but I ended up really loving the overall effect. Moving on to the shirt, this is a plain wrap shirt with narrow sleeves. I created a pattern and then laid it out on my fabric to trace and cut out. This shirt, like a lot of historical Chinese clothing, is cut with a center back seam and no shoulder seams. The shirt needs 4 ties and 1 long rectangular collar piece, all cut on grain. The sleeves are cut as part of the body and then an extension is added to make them longer. To attach the sleeve extension pieces, I sewed them on by machine and then hand filled the seam allowance down for a clean finish. The center back was sewn and felled to one side because I don't know what symmetry is. Now, given how little information I could find about the context and details of this garment, I'm going to take this opportunity to talk about a book that I've been reading, or started reading, which is related heavily to what I talked about in my last video, although if you haven't seen that, don't worry, I think this will still make sense. But what I talked about is how the way in which we view history now is heavily influenced by the people in power, both now and at the time of the events that we study. But there's another way that this happens that I hadn't even thought about until I read it in Freedom is a Constant Struggle by Angela Davis, one of the most important figures in the civil rights movement in the 60s and continuing to be a face of BLM to this day. The book talks about how even the way in which we study historical figures is capitalist. We focus on the individual greatness and achievement rather than the many, many people who allowed those achievements to become possible. And that in itself discourages people from feeling like they have any power to come together and create change. Okay, now back to the sewing. The side to underarm seam was sewn with a narrow French seam. And here we are again making some more ties. I hemmed the sleeves with a simple double fold hem. The actual hem was done the same way but with a slightly larger fold. I decided to add a short rectangle of linen under the center of the collar to add a little bit more structure. Then the collar gets sewn onto the neckline, right sides together. And then I sewed the ties on and finished the inside of the collar by hand. Before I show you the reveal, I just gotta say two things. One, all stunts in this video are real and performed by me. And two, please don't try this at home. I'm a trained professional or something like that. Yeah. Now for the reveal. This one is a little bit on the longer side. I kind of had fun with it, so please enjoy. If you missed my last video where I completed my 10th century Chinese outfit, you can click right here to watch it. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye!